Recently on Twitter, Pierre Polyev commented about the situation in Kelowna, and he left a video here showing about this tent city and how it looks like a third world country. Now, I wanted to know more about it, so I got in touch with someone who's been visiting there to see the scene on the ground. Alex, thank you for joining me today. Known as the Amazing Zoltan on Twitter, you've been visiting Kelowna to see for yourself what's happening. I know it's hard to believe what's happening in the news, so it's easier to just go for yourself. Can you tell me a bit of why you actually went there? Like, what was your motivations?
I just wanted to see the scale of it.
Well, how big is it when you go there? Because we're seeing footage of it, and it seems long. People can exaggerate with cuts or video, things like that. What does it really look like on the ground there?
So interestingly enough, Clyde, the scale was larger than I thought it would be and smaller than I thought it would be at the same time. So um, vertically, the scale is enormous. The size of the tents are huge. Horizontally, in terms of the actual space that they're occupying, is actually smaller than the video suggests. And I assume, and I learned through talking to different people that that is likely due to the weather. So more people are moving inside,
So
just simply due to the cold.
so you went down there and you wanted to talk to people on the ground and see what their actual reasons for being there. Like most people assume they have the best weather in Canada. Where are most of these people from?
So that's an interesting question, Clyde. So with regards to the actual tent city that has been popularized by the Polyev video, uh, those people, according to a commissioner who we spoke to anonymously, most of them are not from Kelowna. They're not locals. However, there are numerous encampments on the outskirts of Kelowna where it's mostly locals.
Where it's mostly locals, and you got to go out and speak to some of them. Should I share some of this video? I'd like to have you give a little bit of a segue to this as well beforehand. So this is interview. Well, I can pull up interview 1 and 2. Give a little segue as to what you're talking about here.
So I believe interview one was with a fella in an encampment that was on the outskirts of town, and he was somewhat of a local. And what I want to make this very clear to your viewers, Clyde. One of the things that we were amazed by in doing this story was how presentable and dignified these people were. There's I think a bit of a misperception, and I had this misperception myself that these people were degenerates, and they're not. What shocked me and upset me about the story was that the bottom rung of society in Canada has risen so rapidly, so as to include people that you would gladly have over for lunch or dinner. These people were jovial, presentable. I would consider them friends easily. They were very normal, which is not necessarily the best term to use. They were good people.
Well, let this play.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, when they had the shared showers and stuff downtown, it got just trashed. Like, I mean, there's too many people that are just angry at the world.
Is that why you don't like feel comfortable in the shelter, or?
I don't like curfews. I'm an adult.
Oh, so
I don't need fucking rules.
Yep. Of course not. Yeah.
I don't need somebody telling me what to do. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. No,
I just figure I'm training to be on the TV show alone.
Oh yeah, for you just.
So it seems pretty up in good spirits and laughing about it. So they don't want to stay at the shelters. People who are homeless, and I take it that they're not all addicts or things like that. These are people who are in economic disparity at this point, and saying that they want the freedom. Why are the shelters so bad?
The general perception we got was that the shelters had too many conventions and rules. So there's this old phrase, I believe it was Janis Joplin, who said, like, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, right? and so the folks that are living off site, they're happier because there's an absence of rules, but there's also still the option of opportunity. I think that one of the things that comes with the shelters is uh, there's a lack of opportunity because of the overabundance of rules, and we don't know exactly how that's going to play out as regards these new tiny homes that have become so controversial.
Well, yeah, I want to get into that because there's something that you put out on Twitter here. I'll get into a small clip of this here. You're also talking off camera to the person that you went out to this with, your travel companion. I'm gonna pop this on here. This is a bit of footage of a town hall that they're actually putting these tiny homes up in.
Hall, and many were turned away. Beacon House on Metropolitan Avenue is a 24-hour homeless shelter and has 8 micro-shelters in its parking lot now. 19 new temporary pallet shelters are going in, and people will be moving in soon. Dozens of people said the location beside Leslie Thomas Junior High, a skate park, and sports field doesn't make sense.
Nothing short of relocating this.
Thank you.
will satisfy.
So clearly, a lot of the locals are not happy that this is going up, that they're going to be building these essentially garden shed ghettos, as you wrote on your Twitter post here in this. What's the feeling there? Like they have these little, because I just want to say, there's an old adage, I think it was Milton Friedman, that said there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government measure. And in this, with these tiny homes going up all over the place, it seems like something that could turn into ghettos. It could turn into real slum areas. And of course, people are concerned. They have their children around. They have these, like they said, it was right next to a skate park. What about the people that are set to actually occupy these? Did you talk to any of the people that might be put into these?
Yeah, so we actually didn't have the opportunity to talk to anybody who was occupying them because, Clyde, the first encampment that we went to had 0 occupants when we first arrived. A week later, there were 15. And they were pretty restrictive about having the occupants speak to the public. So just to give you some context here, $15 million has been spent on this project, and a total of 15 people have been relocated. So we have relocated one person per $1 million at current cost.
That's outrageous. $15 million so far, and it's only we only have 15 occupants. Now, well, okay, I'm actually just blown away by that number. Now I'm trying to find the tweet that you showed. I'll have this in just a moment, because there's a lot you've been discussing about this. One in particular is this tweet here, where you're talking about these bungalows. These are the bungalows that are getting put up. Now they're at an exorbitant cost. This is one you found on Kijiji for $22,000. Which is, you might expect as a construction company, you buy one of these things, you put it up at a location, maybe that you're there for a few years to have an office or what have you. But these are being sold to people, or these are being sold to the government, again, at a cost. This one in particular is $3.9 million. What is the disparity here?
Yeah, so that's for 4 or 5 of those Atco trailers, and this is just the starting cost. A lot of this is coming in the form of grants from the provincial government to various nonprofit societies. So the first tiny home encampment, which is on Crowley Street, which is kind of the garden shed variety versus the Atco trailer variety. What's interesting about that is that it's being operated through the John Howard Society. And the John Howard Society is a nonprofit organization that is primarily dedicated to ensuring the rights of prisoners, which is obviously ironic given the situation. The mayor of Kelowna recently, in an interview with Castanet, said, I do not accept, he says, I do accept, I should say, that many homeless people will refuse to be in these encampments. And when we spoke to the homeless people, especially off-site and off the beaten trail, and in these tent cities that were out of sight, they said that they didn't want to be there specifically because the curfews and the rules locked them in almost a concentration camp environment with their abusers. So you would essentially be confined to a ghetto that has rules but no order, versus a tent city encampment which has order but no rules, which is an interesting thing to think about.
Right. And then my concern, obviously, I mean, with these encampments costing people a lot of money, they're not being occupied as of yet. But with the tent cities, is there crime rampant? Is there things happening in these tent cities? My assumption would be that with no rules, there would also come lawlessness, there would come vagrancy, there would come violent crimes, all the things that you tend to see spring up with these kinds of occupations.
So there is. So in the second, so there's 3 tent cities in Kelowna. One is the Crowley, which is the garden shed variety. The second one is on the northern. It's on what is it, 2790 Enterprise Way, I believe. Highway 97. Highway 97. That one is the Atco trailer variety. The third location has not been selected yet. So the Crowley location is actually right across the street from the Waddell Street, which is exactly where Pierre Poilievre posted that video of the large tent city encampment. It's almost been accepted at this point that there will be a large homeless population there because there was a previous large encampment at Leon Avenue, which is just a few blocks away. The second location is very interesting. It's actually sandwiched between a luxury boat dealership and a Cadillac dealership. And in between those two businesses, there is something called the Rail Trail, which was designed, it actually comes from the old KVR Railway. And it's designed to be a place where, let's just call them uppity people, can jog or ride their bicycle. And homeless people have been encamped there for many years. The marina has been complaining about theft for years. They deal with it regularly, and they anticipate that this new Atco trailer development, which is moving right next door, will increase the amount of theft. And there was no public consultation whatsoever. There was none. So if you actually watch the video that I posted earlier about, this is not unique to BC either. A similar encampment went in Nova Scotia, and they had similar complaints to those people in Kelowna. It does appear to be increasing the amount of crime and the amount of disorderly behavior within areas, but it has to go somewhere. And I want to make that also clear, Clyde.
Mm-hmm.
Something is better than nothing. I do applaud these organizations and the government to some extent. I know neither of us are huge fans of government intervention, but I do want to applaud them for trying to do something versus nothing. Everyone's a critic, and yeah.
Well, fair enough.
Better than nothing.
And here's the thing: there's the suspicion that some communities are offloading their vagrants and their homeless onto other communities. Now, you and I both, we've looked into this, and there's not a lot of evidence to really support it, but there are articles that kind of hint at it. And I found one from the CBC, I think this is Global News, sorry. And this was an article from back a few years ago, back in 2023, saying homeless people allegedly being shipped to London, Ontario, draws ire of deputy mayor. And there's allegations, and there's no actual proof of one municipality shipping homeless people over to another municipality. But this is what a lot of we hear these rumors all the time. We hear rumors of people being shipped from one community, given tickets on Greyhounds, if the Greyhounds still existed. I don't think there is anymore. but shipping people off to other communities. And of course, being in British Columbia, this is kind of a lucrative place for somebody who doesn't have a home, because the weather is a lot better. And we know about a lot of the lenient laws that are out here when it comes to drug use and addiction. It really is bringing people over. Did you see any of that on the ground? Did you see any of like people who were saying, yeah, I was over here and then I've come here, and and this was why, or is this just kind of rumor?
I do believe that it is a rumor. So I spoke again to a commissioner, a security guard, who actually, it's very interesting. The municipality pays for a security guard for the tent city on Waddell Road, the large one that was on the Pierre Polyev video. And he was of the opinion that most of the people there were from out of town. I didn't have a great opportunity to speak to most of those people, but I did have an interaction with one fellow who definitely had an accent that was from Quebec. I don't believe that they're being shipped in from out of town. I believe that a lot of people who come to the Okanagan for income purposes in the summer. I mean, we have a large fruit picking industry. We have a lot of opportunities for menial labor in the suburb. They just get stuck here. And that was an interesting thing as well, is that in the downtown core, it was mostly out of towners. On the outskirts of town, it was mostly people that were locals. Yeah, so I do believe that it's mostly rumor. Yeah.
So before we started the recording here, we were talking about the Great Depression and the way things were in those days. And when you hear stories of people who that are homeless because of poor choices in their life, that's one thing. But we're talking about people who made the right choices in a lot of these cases. Of the people that you met, they're just down on their luck. It's a situation where they need to get back up on their feet. Does this feel like a Great Depression type scenario? Is this something
Absolutely.
that's growing that we might actually see more of?
Oh, absolutely. And that brings up a whole other conversation that I wanted to have with you, Clyde, which is Justin Trudeau said recently, housing is not primarily a federal responsibility. And I don't know where he received that information from. It's patently false. So the level of government that deals with monetary policy, fiscal policy, and immigration is obviously primarily responsible for housing prices. What he is referring to, and I want to make this very clear because there seems to be a giant misunderstanding online, and I think it springs from what I believe is a crisis in financial and civic illiteracy. A lot of people think that housing is primarily a provincial responsibility. It simply isn't. When we talk about housing as a provincial responsibility, what we're talking about is public housing. Public housing obviously is important, but that constitutes across all the provinces roughly 3 to 5% of all the housing in the market. So the vast majority of housing is the private market. And what determines the prices for housing in that private market are supply and demand. And the federal government is the government that is in control of the levers to change that supply and demand. And I am shocked. Frankly, Clyde, I am shocked that so few people understand this. The federal government is in charge of monetary policy, fiscal policy, immigration, and banking regulations. So for them to say that we are not responsible for housing prices is patently ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's I'll take it from you working in finance most of your life. You know a lot about these things. And we all know what's been going on with the open door policy with the Trudeau government when it comes to our immigration. And I've been looking at some of the statistics. It looks like the numbers are a lot bigger than we've been led on to believe. We hear about immigration numbers, 600,000 students here, 500,000 immigrants, and then, 250,000 refugees. These numbers add up, and we're talking per year. When you factor that against the supply and demand curve of housing these people, it really bids up the price for Canadians, and it puts us all in a much more compromised position as a whole. Alex, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'll obviously have you back on again. You're going to be doing future coverage of this. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on X. And, yeah. If anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out directly. I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Well, links in the description down below. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you.